Welcome to the Movement PT Coffee Cast, where we sit down and talk about physical therapy, health, and whatever else comes to mind during our coffee-infused conversations. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Movement PT Coffee Cast. My name's Dalton, and with me, as always, is my beautifully bearded friend, William. William, how are we doing today?
We're doing pretty good. I'm loving the setup that we're in right now. We're actually in Dalton's room, and we're on this little antique furniture piece. You know, it makes it real classy. Plus, we've got our starbs. So
nothing but the best. Nothing but the best here at the PT Coffee Cast. Top-notch setup, top-notch equipment. One day, maybe we'll be able to graduate to a real studio.
That would be cool.
When we have some money. Because
when will that be?
Never. So, guys, we're back at it again this week. So we're not going to be doing an interview. Me and Will are just going to be chatting. We're going to be chatting a little bit about our experiences in the past with injuries such as back pain and how that's kind of changed over the course of learning what we've learned through physiotherapy. I think it's important for people to understand that everyone goes through injuries, and just because we're physical therapists, that doesn't mean we're exempt from injury. So I think it's important that we talk a little bit about that. Will, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of the premise that we were talking about, is just the fact that it's important for us to be able to drop the ego and understand that these things are complex and everybody goes through them. And just because we know a little bit about the human body doesn't mean that we're protected from having issues and it's important for, I think, people to know that, so it doesn't feel like they're weird because they have back pain or something like that, Yeah.
No, for sure. So I think we should let's just start it off. I know the reason why we sparked this idea for a podcast was because you're actually recently going through a little bit of a back pain / back injury that you experienced. So why don't you tell people what happened?
Yeah. So I'd like to kind of preemptively say I have had back pain throughout, even when I was younger I had it. But this time, what happened was basically, obviously we've been having a decent amount of stress because we've got our exam coming up, and so we're studying, and then we're at the new jobs, and so there's a lot of learning going on there.
Trying to figure out what physical therapy actually is.
So there's a lot going on, and so because of that busyness, I'd kind of taken a week off of lifting, and I want to do a powerlifting competition in 2019. That's kind of my goal.
Nice.
And so I had taken a week off just because things kind of were going crazy, really busy. We did that course, and then I kind of went back. I was super stressed, and I'm I'm just gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna do my workout. And I went full throttle,
just super fired up.
Exactly.
Went right to the bar. Ripped 405 off the ground.
Not quite, but I was lifting pretty heavy, probably 9 out of 10 effort. And I knew I was really stressed that day, and I was going into it already being exhausted and tired and stuff. And maybe my lifts weren't perfect, but I felt fine during this session, but I did a lot of deadlifts and a lot of heavy deadlifts. And the next day I kind of woke up and I was oh no.
Uh-oh.
You just know it's there, and
you're
yeah, I was and I woke up, and I had pretty flexion based sensitivity. It was hurting bending over. It was hurting if I was relaxing my back, kind of sitting, that kind of thing. So I did the old prop the pillow behind the back,
Nice.
Just some things so that's kind of what happened to me. So, and now it's like, it's manageable.
Right. Yeah. So like, I think what we can do is like maybe take us through the process of like what went through your mind and some of the strategies and things that came to mind when this happened.
Yeah.
And maybe we can talk a little bit about prior injuries and how maybe you would approach it. So like, and that, you mentioned having like a history of pain before, or back problems before. Like what maybe was your strategies like back then, or what you kind of thought about when it happened,
Well, and that's the thing is I didn't know much, right? When I was younger, like I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why. And you don't really get a clear answer, And I feel like that's not uncommon, right? Doesn't anybody really understand what's going on? Like when you're younger and you have back pain. So before, I would just stop doing whatever I was doing, and I would just wait for it to go away, and then I would just kind of go back,
Classic. The body just heals itself. It's magic.
Basically.
I think I would agree with that. Like, I've hurt myself, my low back before, like years ago, like squatting, right? And you hurt it, and then the first thing you do is like you stop doing everything. Is basically what I did. So like, I stopped squatting. I stopped even doing like lower body stuff. I just focused on upper body stuff, and I did that for a long period of time because one, it hurt like heck, and then two, like very, very fearful of having that happen again. You know what I mean? And I think that's a common reaction for most people. And then, again, just like you, I had a similar scenario in the winter where I hurt my back again. And I did almost the same thing. Like I was driving home from school. It's about 2 hours. So I drove 2 hours, stressed out about midterms, just not a good place. Go right to the gym, no real warm up. Just start deadlifting, pull the bar, and again, same thing. I felt fine, and then the next day you wake up and you're just like, oh, you know, it got you.
Yeah.
And the thing, so I think like what's important for people to understand, and I think one thing I want to get across in terms of the approach. So like my mindset then, let's say when that happened, was my first thought was like, okay, this sucks, this hurts, but I know I'm going to be okay. Like that was my thought process immediately.
Yeah.
I was like, I know I have strategies that I can use to make sure that I can get back to doing like what I was doing before.
Right.
So I think right off the bat, having that mindset in comparison to what I used to have back then was like where it was like completely fearful, don't really know what's going on. That there's a big difference there in terms of your mindset. And then one important thing I think, and I never really realized this before, and I know we've talked about it, is like honestly, sometimes you just gotta chill. Like I remember like being like very, very, very sensitive, like my low back, and I'm like, yo, I'm not moving from this couch. So like I sat down on the couch, which was like sitting was like a tolerable position for me, and honestly like I spent a lot of time in that position because it gave me relief, and then I would periodically split that up with getting up and moving, doing some walking, which walking was an irritating thing for me, but I didn't completely stop doing that. So but majority of my time was spent resting for the first like 2 to 3 days, and then after that I started to implement more strategies to like get moving again, which we can talk about. But I think like those first couple days, like I don't know how it was for you, but for me, I think it's okay for people to rest a little, like rest a bit, and like give your body time to adapt to that.
Well, and I think like the big kind of main point that we're sort of getting at here is that just because you kind of understand it a little bit more, that doesn't then remove the pain.
Right.
Like knowing and understanding and feeling safe doesn't reduce the amount of pain you have. It just makes you feel more control, and it sets your expectations in that this will get better, and I know how to, get there over X amount of time.
Yeah.
So it's more changing your response and your level of like concern and worry about what is going to happen next. So I think that's like kind of a main point, is like just because
awesome.
You understand, you're still going to have that real intense pain.
Oh yeah,
right?
Didn't just take it away.
And it's okay, like you said, to chill a bit. Like you don't just be like, okay, we know pain isn't 100% related to tissue damage, so therefore I'm just gonna go max out when I'm like really struggling. Like, I think that's like a important thing to consider.
For sure. And then knowing that like I am gonna have to start moving, I'm gonna have to start reintroducing movements into my low back, I'm gonna have to start doing things, implementing things to help myself get better, instead of just resting or stopping for a long period of time. You know what I mean? I think that's key too.
And I think like, you know what, when I was thinking about while you're talking, when I was a kid and I had back pain, when I went to health professionals, like I'm not gonna like call out any specific profession, because it's every profession. They would always do stuff to me. You know what I mean? It was always things, and part of it was me, because I had these beliefs, like I know lots of people who had disc bulges and herniations and arthritis and these kinds of things, and so I was really worried about that. I thought maybe my activities were contributing to those things, and so I wanted to make sure that wasn't happening. The health professionals kind of perpetuated those things. I'm hoping that they were well-intentioned, but that aside, like they were contributing to the negative beliefs that I had about my back. I didn't think my back was strong. I thought it was frail and that it would get injured.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I kept doing things.
Yeah.
So I feel like where we're at now, we both just hope that we don't do that. We want to like really help people like understand more that it's not just about this one factor. There's many things that can contribute. Like in both of our cases, there was lots of life stress going on around the injury, and that kind of maybe lowered our thresholds for a little bit, and then we went and we did the same thing that we would normally do,
right,
which would normally be fine, but we couldn't tolerate it,
right. And that's a good point, man, because I think what we don't want people to do or think is like, because both of our injuries were around deadlifting, like there's just that negative thought around like, oh, you shouldn't be deadlifting. And that's like the farthest thing like from the truth. You know what I mean? It's not the movement that it was the load management. And when you talk about load management, it's all of those things that you just talked about, like the stressors, the environment, where our mindset was at, the amount of weight that we did lift, or the amount of volume that we lifted when our body wasn't prepared or when our threshold was lowered. And I think people, and I've been there and you've been there, it's like you don't think about those things if you don't understand them. And like even when I started physical therapy school, I didn't know any of that stuff. You know what I mean? I wasn't thinking about those things. No. Like now it's helped to influence like the way that I look at things when it happens to myself, and now it's going to help influence the way that I interact with people that are experiencing those same kind of things. Yeah. And I think what we want to get across to people that are listening that aren't physios, or if you are physios, whatever it is that like this stuff happens like to everyone, and it's important that we understand and are able to educate the people that come in to see us about these things and give them hope. Yeah. Because it's easy to get those negative thoughts, like, and I'm sure you've even had it, even knowing what we knew, like during our time of injuries, like I had negative thoughts. I had negative thoughts where I was like, oh, this is brutal. Like I'm not getting better. Like it's day 2, day 3, and like it still hurts like heck. And then the one thing you start doing is if you go back to the gym and start doing some stuff, you're looking over at Buddy deadlifting. You're like, you're comparing yourself, and you're like, how is Buddy over here deadlifting and I'm over here injured? Like that happens, man. And like that you can get in a bad mindset with that stuff. So it's important to understand that like those thoughts do happen, but people need to know that like you can get out of that and that there is hope. Yeah. And I feel like as a profession and as physical therapists, we can play a huge role in like impacting those people. Yeah. From that perspective. Agreed on that. I think like that's a huge thing is like the people are coming and they're looking to have those worries be validated, but then
hopefully disprove it, right? Like, you don't want yourself to be in a bad position. And I think that's, like you talked about, like, whenever I've had, like, pain, even though I know some pain science and stuff like that, I still have those same concerns. Oh, yeah. It's like impossible to not have that.
It's human nature.
Because that's the whole point, right? Yeah. Like, pain is supposed to, pain has meaning, and it means that you may have to adjust certain things in your life that you don't want to adjust. You know, so you start getting worried, you know, what am I going to be able to do? Am I going to be able to keep working? Are people going to judge me because I'm a healthcare professional and I have pain?
And you're injured. Yo, that's true. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I think it would be a shame to have someone with that thought process and then go to somebody who couldn't, reassure them and make sure that they get kind of into the right mindset going forward, you know?
Yeah. So, like, take me through. So we kind of talked about initial injury, first couple days, trying to get your mindset right around it. Where did you go from there?
Well, I think first I did kind of what you did, and I just found some positions that were, like, comfortable. And then I kind of just, you know, I looked at what was happening during that time. I wasn't sleeping very good, you know, so that was one thing I really tried to be like, okay, I can definitely control sleeping. Nice. You know, some people can't, you know, I'm not saying that's going to be a perfect solution for everybody, right? But it's a definite contributing factor. So I tried to make sure that my sleep hygiene was as good as possible. And then I just started doing some gradual movements that I could tolerate. You know, things like cat-cow, they were still a little bit uncomfortable, you know, but not to the point where it was going to flare me up. Right. So I just tried to do anything I could that would move my back. Did some flossing kind of stuff just to kind of get the nervous system moving. And then after about a couple of days, I went back to the gym, and I just basically, it wasn't bad enough where I had to really modify the exercises. I just kind of reduced the intensity. So, like, I did my squatting, but I just did it with less weight. So I kind of, like, just dialed things back because I view it as going to the gym and exercising is better than not. Right. So, like, you know, it's good to continue exercising and find a level that you can, if at all possible at that time. So that's kind of the way I went about it. If I was more sensitive, I could have tried things like different variations of a squat, or squatting to a box, so kind of limiting my range. Could have just done it with a kettlebell, or just body weight supported. Like, it depends where you're at, what you're struggling with. You know, so there's different spots for everybody to start, right? Yeah, no, it's a good point, because I think going back to when I experienced the same thing, mine was a little more sensitive, I would say, for a longer period of time. And I did go back to the gym. I can't remember. Maybe it was like 4 or 5 days after, 3, 4. I don't know. I can't remember the exact day. But I couldn't go back to squatting like a barbell. Or like you're saying, I went back to, honestly, I just did air squats to a box. Yeah. And then for deadlifting, like, which was like my mechanism of injury, I didn't even go back to like loaded right away. I went back to honestly just doing like hip hinge, a hip hinge with a dowel, and just made like a mini circuit of things that I could do, that were all like tolerable. Like, not to say that I didn't have any discomfort with some of the movements, but were tolerable and wasn't increasing my discomfort or sensitivity at all. And I just did that for a couple days, and with the mindset of like, okay, then I'm gonna try loading this squat with a kettlebell. So I did a goblet squat with a kettlebell to a box, you know, and then I'm gonna load the hip hinge. So I started with like a banded good morning, and then just gradually worked myself up to like a kettlebell deadlift, and then continued to work myself back to squatting and actually deadlifting. And there was a little bit more of a process again. Like, I went to like trap bar elevated, and then I went to box squatting with a barbell, like a front rack position barbell, like front squat. Like, I did like different things to get there, but
I always had the mindset of like, I'm going to get back to squatting and deadlifting because that's what I enjoy doing, you know?
And I think if you think about like pain as like your body feeling like it's in danger, right? Like you're almost trying to prove to yourself that it's not over time. So you're gradually giving it proof. You know?
Like, yo, you're okay.
Yeah, hey, you did some squats, like you could do that. Like your body starts to kind of like understand that it's safe, you know, over time. I think that's like kind of an interesting way of looking at it, you know?
Yeah, and I think in the past, if we're to compare it where it was in the past, what I would do is like, you'd be injured, I would stop completely for a period of time, whether it be 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then I would go right back to that movement that caused me the discomfort. And maybe I'd be okay. Like the body is very adaptive, right? Like sometimes all you need, your body's very like, it'll heal, it'll get better over time. But I think a better approach would be to like gradually building yourself back up. And like maybe I wouldn't have had to wait 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And then what people might do is they go back and they start loading that position again because they don't feel any pain. And they feel better, but then you start loading that position and you just potentially get yourself into a little bit of trouble. Like it's hard to tell, if you will, but I think if you can gradually prepare your body to get back to that, then you'll be better off probably in the long run.
Yeah, I would think so. I would hope so, right? Yeah.
So I think as physical therapists, I think for people that are listening that aren't physios and that are just the public, I think it's important that if you do experience something like this and you don't know what to do, like I encourage you to seek out help. And I know we've had people message us that have gone to get help and it wasn't the right help, or they say it didn't work for me, or I failed like physio or whatever. I would still encourage you to continue to search out and find someone that aligns with what you believe in and that takes that mentality. Because as a professional, as like a physical therapist now, I think for me is like I want to be able to empower people to take that approach, you know, because that way they're in control of it. And then now if I help them that one time, if it happens again, which, you know, life is life, like it's probably going to happen again potentially, they know they have the strategies, the skills, the understanding of what's going on to try and do it themselves. And then if they still have a little bit of trouble and they need some guidance, then they can come back to me or you or anyone else. And I hope that people continue to search out to find someone, because there are people out there that are willing to take that approach to help you and to give you the control.
And this is the thing. Is back pain solved?
No.
more so many people have back pain. So people need to start looking for strategies, options, and game plans, and not a fix.
Yeah. No, man, you're right. And we're starting to, it's starting now. I'm positive and hopeful, and I think information is available now, and right people are putting out information and it's getting to the public and making them understand like that, and which is good. But we need to continue to push that, and I hope that as a profession, like as physical therapists, we can all come together, band together, and realize like, yo, like we can take a big step in helping a lot of people with this stuff.
You got it. Let's do it.
Yeah, man.
It was a good conversation.
Yeah, no, I think it was good. I hope it was good. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think that's all we're gonna wrap up there for today. We got to get to studying for this exam. We got 2 weeks until our practical exam, and so pray for us. But yeah, guys, we hope you enjoyed that episode. I know we've been saying we're going to be back with another interview. We've kind of been super busy lately with this exam and work, so we haven't been able to set up some times, but we do have some interviews coming down the pipe. Hopefully we can get you at least one coming next week. But for now, we'll continue to try to put something out, whether it's just me and Will talking. But we appreciate you guys listening. If you like this episode, if you've liked any of our other episodes, could you please head over to iTunes and drop us a review and subscribe to our podcast? We really appreciate that. We'd like to really get our reviews up. It helps the podcast grow. It helps us move up the charts on iTunes. And if you've gotten any value from us, it's just kind of a way of saying thanks, and we'd really appreciate it. You guys know where you can find us. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at the MVMTPTs. If you want to reach out to us via email, it's themovementpts@gmail.com. And yeah, guys, Will, you got anything to add?
No, I just think, we're just trying to share a perspective with this kind of episode. And I think, anybody can reach out to us, and, if you want to chat about things like this and, how our thought process has changed, or you want to question us on stuff, just shoot out, and we're down.
Pour a cup of coffee, and we're game. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. Peace.